computer here. And we'll give it to Jason later since he's missed the call. All right, I'm gonna move on to the next question. Say again. All right, go ahead, Joe. Did you have your hand up?
Yes. Is anybody a member of the FBSN, the Faith-Based Security Network? Did you hear that?
Oh, Joe, yeah, we heard it. I'm not familiar with that.
Well, I mean, we're just talking about these questions, and I mean, I'm the facilities manager here, but I also do the safety part of it as well. We call it the safety ministry group, but we're doing a lot of the things you guys were just talking about. But I joined the Faith-Based Security Network, and it's a really wonderful resource for the safety side of things. So I just wanted to bring it up and mention it to you guys. It's like I said, it's really, really a wonderful resource for safety ministry and security.
Very good. Good feedback. All right. So Faith-Based Security Network. Thank you, Joe.
Yep.
All right. Let's go on to the next question. I think there was a couple of security questions. So here's another one. This one's from Lloyd Brown. And I think Lloyd may have done one of our training sessions up where Chuck Weathers is, if I've got the name right. He says recommendations for security and how feasible are armed guards or K9 security? Any thoughts on that there? So recommendations. So we already talked a lot about it because of Jason's question. What else stands out to you in this question from Lloyd about armed versus K9 security? So Tori said there's one paid person, and I think Tori's paid person is armed on staff, right? And Tori, talk to us a minute about the open carry decision versus the concealed carry.
It just mainly fell down to parents. Parents just said, we'd like to be able to recognize, even though he wears a shirt and stuff like that. And so it just fell down on the parents of the school that voiced their opinions. There's 3 others that do carry. We carry concealed, and that's the way we want to stay. It's just a personal preference. So we just let the security guard go ahead and stand out as an open carry. I'm concealed and 2 others are concealed, and we don't tell anybody.
So the open carry wears a clear identification that he is security and he's a paid security position.
Correct. Yep.
How about K9? What stands out to you in that question?
Never had to deal with it on my end, so I've never really thought about it. We have Arvada PD come in and run their dogs on large events and like concerts and stuff like that, just to do a sniff for bombs and stuff, but otherwise we've never thought about it.
Who was with us when we did the tour of the Mall of America? Yes, so the Mall of America tour, they have their own dogs and they have their own, you would call them K9 units, but they have their own dogs in-house. And each dog has a specialty, and so their smelling ability is one of the key abilities of the animal. The Mall of America is quite large, and I know some airports may tend to do this as well. I don't think that it would be a good idea in churches myself. I think churches are already wrestling with the, and we had this discussion the other day about the difference between a, what's the word, emotional support animal versus a, what's the other term? Like a guide dog. So there is a group
animal.
Say again?
Service animal.
Service. So yeah, the word service, if you have a service animal, there's a whole set of government regulations that guide what a service animal is. And as most churches can be a private campus, they are allowed to make their own rules. Most of us would go along with most of the government rules in the case of a service animal, but emotional support doesn't follow those same guidelines. And so a person might bring an emotional support animal to your campus, and they don't have to wear a vest. They don't have to be called a service animal. The primary purpose of an emotional support animal is to pet the animal, whereas a service animal is you do not pet the animal, do not use that animal to bring little children over. So that you might want to consider that when you bring in K9, at the airport, there is a clear sign on it that says, do not pet, do not engage this animal. And so Sunday mornings, that doesn't seem like a time that you would want to have that controversial discussion. It's people are coming as families and wanting to just enjoy worship. And so I think I might keep K9 in the truck until you need them, or like Tori said, to do bomb sniff in advance or post event. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, this is Ken. I totally agree with what you just said. The K9 being not in the facility, maybe in the parking lot doing outside stuff, but I think it'd be a distraction. So I would opt to leave it out, not in the church.
Yeah, so maybe the church needs to go ahead and write a guideline. And so if you have a emergency response program, a plan or binder, and then that sort of starts to morph into your security binder and security plan. If you don't have a facilities use procedure, maybe that's where you sneak in some comment about animals and what is our policy, so that the policy is the bad guy, so that it's not just whatever Tory wants on his campus, it's the policy. All right, I think the next question might be on security as well. You guys ready to go on? All right, this question is, what are the liabilities, if any, with having security cameras inside a weekday preschool classroom and monitoring them?
I'm going to fire off here a little bit. It really is going to depend on the state that you're in. We just went through this because we were just sort of curious. In the daycare, you cannot have any video recording in restrooms, of course, but you also can't have video recording diaper changing areas. You can have it in the classrooms looking at the students, but if there's any changing of anything, you cannot have it focused in that area. We also have a wrestling room that we had to black out a corner of it because the guys would go in there and change. And so we didn't know it, but they run in there, change, so we had to black it out. So if it's any type of changing area whatsoever, you can't have it. But that's Colorado. That's not every state.
Well, and given that most, where I come from, if a child needs changing, you just plop down on the ground somewhere. You know, it's like it's hopefully carpet. But in most of our preschool rooms, they do have a changing station. What we ran into is we started a room called the, help me out, Monty, special needs classroom. And in the special needs classroom, they had a couple of children that were really too big to try to get up on that changing station. So we installed a professional, almost adult-sized changing station that's motorized. You can raise and lower it. You can transfer them from a wheelchair. And that was in one of our preschool bathrooms. But prior to that, they were just changing those children right on the floor because they were so big, you know, right there. And if you had preschool classroom monitoring, you would want to consider what Tori just said, I believe. I think for us, what we have done is ensure that all kids' classrooms have a window from the hallway so that anyone can walk by and look in at any time. I know of a church, I won't mention their name, one of the churches we've done a previous conference at, they have a camera in every kid's classroom, and it was almost a requirement. If it's kids are in the classroom, we're going to have a camera there. And I believe they're all being recorded. At Faith, we don't do that. We do have a window on every classroom, and then that is turned into, with active shooter and run, hide, fight, need to cover that window. So then we have to provide a method to cover the window as well. But we don't want that window covered on normal operations. We want anyone, a parent, another adult, a leader, to be able to look in at any time, and that window exists as an accountability. The question, though, is about liabilities. I think Tori's point would be changing.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Cody.
that's my question. And yeah, I checked with our insurance coverage and see, you know, if they had any answers for me or anything. Basically, they just pointed to our policies. They said just whatever is in your policy, you should abide by. So there kind of lies my question of creating this policy. So these answers were very helpful. It kind of just comes down to the changing the privacy of the children and things like that. So I'm trying to write the balance between safety versus privacy. And so these are very helpful. And if there's any other points to that, that'd be great.
I think you just Hal, did you have something?
I was going to say, what Tori said makes a lot of sense, but if you have cameras in your classrooms that aren't on areas where children are being changed, it actually can save you from a lot of liability. If there's an accusation or a suspicion, you can always go back and look at that tape and find out exactly what happened.
Yeah, I agree. This is Ken again. I go back to when my daughter was in preschool 20 years ago in daycare, and they had webcams in the rooms that the parents could log into and watch the kids. So kind of the same way, you just got to make sure it's aimed the right direction so you're not seeing what you don't want to show.
Yeah, we installed a network at a Christian school, and they wanted to put iMacs on every teacher's desk, and then we bought the iSight cameras for all those iMacs, and then the principal wanted all those iSights turned around towards the classroom and wanted to be able to log in at any time and see what's going on in all his classrooms, and that was before we ever pulled security cameras. So I think what stood out to me as well was the comment just made by Hal is the fact that you have a camera at a location then leads to another two questions essentially from law enforcement or security or parents, is that if you don't have one, then you sort of say, well, we don't have it. And to Cody's point is that if the policy exists, then you blame the policy. Are you doing the policy that you have? If you don't have that, or if the policy says we're not going to create a policy, those are things that you rest upon when you start to get into liability issues. And there is a pro and a con in almost every case. And so not having a camera can be a pro, and then having a camera can be a pro. And so each of those, it tends to be the leadership's decision a lot of times, or if you've had an incident in the past that drives those decision-making processes.
I kind of have a part B to this question. Are there any points to having signs out that say camera recording in process or progress, or anything like that?
Used to be, I think Tori spoke to this in a previous one. When you put a sign out, like Texas had the big issue about do you open carry, close carry, and there's two signs on the front of their buildings and they both oppose each other. So you put a sign out saying you may be on camera, or you may be on candid camera. Back in the day, in today's world, there's no one who doesn't carry a camera with them. So that starts to not even make sense anymore. Having that signage, I don't think it's going to do much in today's court of law. I think it may add a slice of extra help in a court situation that you have that sign out front. I don't think you need that sign, and I believe on a private campus, maybe Tori can speak to this.
Yeah, we don't have any signage up. It's a waste of time. If you walk in, it's a private facility. You look up, there's a camera. We have cameras everywhere. You can't walk from one side to the other without us watching you. So, it's we don't put them up. It's one less, vinyl lettering and sign it. We have to take care of. It's not required.
This is Ken again. Do you advertise anything on when people sign in, when they sign up, do they have a disclaimer that says your kid's classroom is being recorded for security reasons or anything like that?
It's just on their informational sheet that all areas are covered, but nothing they have to sign or anything like that. We have a lot of law enforcement, fire department, lawyers. They drop their kids off, and that's what kept us open during COVID as well. So they all know it's labeled on their information packet.
Good feedback. Yeah, I think that there's other similar things going on in society, but the fact that everyone has a camera all the time is, and then I think we've gotten away from seeing that signage so much. All right, I'll go on to the next question then. That was on our roundtable RSVP. All right, this is from Tori. Tori, you want to throw this one at us?
Yeah, so just trying to get different ideas just to shake things up in my own department, How do you guys, how often do you guys do evaluations on your employees? What do you do that's special for your crew and stuff like that? So I was just trying to see what everybody else does, and maybe I can, change it up in my end as well.
Who has a thought on this?
Ken Minus here, jumping in.
Good.
Hey, we do an annual review process, and it's just changed up with my boss in the last few years, and from all my tenure here, it's probably the best one that we've ever done. I can share some documents with you if you want, Tori, but the long story short is it's very relational. The first meeting with the staff person is basically explaining the review process and asking them to fill out I don't know if I want to call it a self-evaluation, but it's a self-checkpoint thing, like how did your year go? What did you think you did well? What things would you like to work on in the future? Then the next meeting, you're going over that with the employee, hearing what they have to say. And then there's a third interaction where you actually did the write-up and you're stating, confirming what their job description says, what they've done well. If there's things that they're working on, need to continue working on, and then you're setting some goals, and we set, 2 to 3 goals at the most. Sometimes it's only 1, depending on what it is. And then also development things. How would they like to develop? And there's, being a church, there's times where that development is, I want to be able to read the Bible through 1 time this next year, and that's fine. If that's what they would like to do as a personal development goal, or it could be taking some class, expanding something in their knowledge base. So I like it a lot better than the old way where you're grading people and you're giving number balances. It's basically a conversation, and the whole purpose of it is to build them up and agree on things that need to be worked on and set some smart goals and then throughout the year, you're actually touching base and saying, how are you doing on that goal? What can I do to help you make sure that you reach that goal by the end? So hope that helps them.
Very good. And here at Faith, we do almost identical thing. I used to call them the 360 fork back. You review yourself and then you get a fork in the back. The idea was that you would sit down and fill out this sheet that Ken's talking about. It's more relational. It's just talking points to engage your boss. And so then your boss can read through what you wrote down about yourself this year, referring maybe to your job description. And then you meet up and discuss it. And then your boss can go back and make some final notes. And there is a goals section on it to set some goals for next year. And it's a lot. It's not, there's no real score. You score yourself a little bit just on a few questions that kind of help you engage the conversation. But ours is driven more about the church's mission. And do you feel that you're staying with the church's mission? And then they're asking for a renewed or a refreshed copy of your job description if you think that has changed. So it is done annually. And then we try to keep a copy so we can look back at last year's goals. Much more relational and not so much a score. And in military, we would get a 4.0 until they changed the score to 5.0 back when everyone got a 4.0. So let's just raise the scale. Who else is doing something and we didn't really speak to rewarding employees. And I know in our certification program, I'll do a class called Carrots and Sticks Don't Work. But who has something on the reward program?
So for myself, like anything where my team is like going above it, like we book our space out like crazy. Not saying anybody doesn't, but like we open our space to like the community and we welcome that. So we always are having like parties and stuff like that. So if it's one of those weeks where we've got multiple events going on and things are just more than an average weekend, then I try to like take them out afterwards or do something or bring in food for them or just something where they know that, hey, we see what you guys are doing. I may not be able to like give you a raise or a bonus, but I can at least, show my appreciation by making sure a meal's on me or something like that. So.
Good.
We're similar, same thing. If there's a big week, major events, lots of things going on, we'll bring in lunch, especially if they're working a really long day for lots of setups or heavy work, so on and so forth. We do evaluations twice a year, church-wide, especially for all full-time employees. Part-time is optional, but with a lot of part-time facilities team, it's helpful to do that with them at least so that they feel that one-on-one and the same kind of experience that the full-time team is having, so they don't feel left out of that process. And like you said, it's just a relational conversation. Typically, we're not addressing any major issues at that point, because if we wait till only twice a year to address any major issues, it's generally too late. And at least once a year, we don't have very much downtime, as I'm sure everybody else doesn't. We go wait till the summer, wait till this, wait till that, and everybody, the church, ministries fill it up, community events fill it up. But we have maybe a week or two near the end of summer before our spring or our fall groups start up again, where I can take. This year I took all of our facilities team out just for an afternoon of bowling. And it just was a blast. We had a really great time. I gave them all, we had lunch and we just had an opportunity to play and pick on each other and have a great time and laugh and joke. And it just was to be outside of where we normally are and just have fun. So I actually got a lot of feedback about that. That was positive, which was nice. And also made me realize that we don't do it enough. So.
Yeah, because that will be a team building session as well. So there's value in it, even though it may be a reward. There's even additional employee value. And I would just say that James is going to use mesquite, and Lara is going to use palm oil. So Ken, did you have something?
Yeah, a little more global. First, one comment that Laura said in there, and when we're doing evaluations, if I surprise an employee during evaluation, I have failed as their boss. There should not be any surprises when we sit down. If they haven't been meeting the expectations, that conversation should have been done well before the evaluation point. And then my other thing is, here at Calvary, we do a little more global of this reward thing. We do the meals once in a while and donuts and things for our team, our custodial team, primarily maintenance if we do something. But we actually have a team, we call it the SET team. I think it's staff, I don't even know, staff something team. Anyways, they plan all through the year fun things. There's times where we'll stop for the day for an hour and get ice cream. We'll do an extra meal, a lunch, an extra long lunch. We'll play a yard game. Sometimes we'll do an offsite retreat. But the whole purpose of this committee team of staff members is to look for ways to energize and pour into us as a whole. So it's not just the facilities that is doing it. We're doing it church-wide.
Very good. Yeah, I was just reminded this week on our mission trip, we missed all of you there. That was a lot of fun. We built a wood shed at a Christian school, a DIY shed. It was in 3 different parts. It's actually in like 4,000 parts, but someone started throwing those Nerf darts, and Nerf darts started coming my direction. And I was reminded that our staff here at Faith caused that to start to be such an issue that most of our admin staff have a hidden Nerf gun underneath their desk just in case it breaks out. And so I don't know if that's team building or what, but I've got one ready if we need it. So team building,
Yeah, I'd love to jump in if I could.
please.
One of the best team building exercises we've done is actually taking our group to an escape room. It's a lot of fun, and it really, really shows how well your team works together. So
Ouch.
that was a fun one for us.
Yeah. Do we work together or not? We're stuck in this room.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So if you don't think you're going to get out, don't do that team building session.
Right.
All right. I'm going to move along then to keep up with our time. So the next one was from Joe. Joe, you want to throw this one at us here?
Yeah, sure. Well, this is kind of in our area anyway, in Pennsylvania. There's just some accidental overdoses, as well as people coming off of opioid addiction in the church, which they might not look like a drug addict. They might just look like a regular attender. But I have 2 doses of Narcan on hand, but I'm reaching out to the local state agency to try to get maybe a couple more. But there is a little bit of a training procedure. I just wondered, and I guess this may not fall into facilities. I'm more on the safety and security side of it. But I just wondered, I've been looking into training for Narcan. I was just wondering if anybody else had that on their plate or a concern about it. The way, fentanyl is becoming so widespread and more of a problem. Well, that was where I was coming from.
Any thoughts? Ken gives us a thumbs up on that. He agrees. I have not seen that issue here on our campus to my knowledge. I thought in the news that Narcan was starting to be hard to get because so many ambulances and so forth needed it. But I think they were trying to train even fire department and other law enforcement to have it on hand beyond just the ambulance. I don't have that. I think for us, a similar discussion is having some Benadryl or actual EpiPens ready to go. And I think we kind of forgot that. And one day we were doing sort of a fun team building where our custodial supervisor had made cheesecake for everyone, but she had put a nut crust on it for me because I don't normally eat the wheat crust. But then one of our guys was allergic to tree nuts and he started swelling up. And so we're scurrying around, ran over to the school to get the school supply. And we didn't stock it, but we had Benadryl, but that wasn't enough for him. So his dad showed up and was a little nervous and they went ahead and went to the emergency room. But I think there's things like this that we can be more prepared. I think another similar example of what you're talking about is having an AED on campus. And for years, not many people had AEDs, and it was only an emergency ambulance that would have that. And so we've stocked an AED. So there is a point where you say, are we a full medical facility, or what is sort of the expectation? Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly the point. The EpiPen and Benadryl I think is a key one as well. But you're going to call 911. So and your AED. I mean, it's a matter of being able to react during that time frame before the EMT and the medical professionals arrive at your site. So, I think all those things are just things that we need to be prepared for. Medical emergency is the most common thing that's going to happen as from a safety standpoint. But being prepared for all the different scenarios is, can be challenging, and it's just good to be prepared, put it that way.
Yeah, I was just reminded seeing Jeff's name on his screen there that we chose to put our AED at the elevator lobby, and we thought, okay, what's the central location in our building that people could remember, and then it wouldn't be so ugly out in sort of like in the main lobby, but right by the elevator. And so we tell people it's by the elevator, and a few times people are like, "We have an elevator?" I was like, well, okay. Maybe that didn't work. So any other thoughts? Where would you store the Narcan? Where would you store the EpiPen? Joe, go ahead.
Well, we are fortunate to have a security room. It's about the size of an office, but it has all our security cameras in it. So we have a place for guys to check in, get their radios. We have our Narcan in there. We have 4 AEDs placed throughout the building on both floors. But we try to have first aid kits strategically placed. There's trauma kits as well inside each AED box. But we're fortunate to have that safety room and have most of our safety and medical emergency type. The blankets are in there, the tarp in order, and if we have someone, a privacy tarp, that type of stuff. So we try to keep that all in that one room in a central location.
Very good. Yeah, and I would champion that as well. And so for us, our biggest first aid kit with all the breathing bag and stuff and a blanket is all with the ERT team's radio. So where they check in is where that biggest kit used to be. So I'll have to double check that now, and I don't know that it has even an EpiPen in it. So good feedback. We need to move along. So we've already gotten a little bit behind, I think, on our questions. So I'm going to move us to the next question. This is from Lee. Lee, you want to go ahead and take this one?
Well, I'm looking at retirement in January, so I'm a little philosophic here. So I'd like for you guys to let me know what you feel like the biggest accomplishment you've made as an FM that you're most proud of, and how are you investing in the people that work for you up to build them up? I think we covered the second question fairly well. I would like to know what you feel like your biggest accomplishment as an FM is.
Who wants to answer that question? All right, I saw Lara lean in, so I know she's got something on her mind. So you're not hearing me talk. Well, I get picked on a lot about procedures, and the board asked me to teach a lesson on procedures way back. I think it was in 2013 or something, and I did that at a national conference. And I think it was an eye-opener to a lot of FMs, and it was one of my early very hard to do approaches to getting our arms around the preventative maintenance program here. And to have a great preventative maintenance program, you've got to have the ability to launch that and understand it, a code system, or you need those procedures that are locally specific. And so I spent a lot of time developing that program and writing just at least the starting point or the rough drafts of a lot of those. So I would say developing the preventative maintenance program with excellence here at Faith would be something I could lean back on and should be here for years to come. If the next FM leans into that, what's already been produced for this campus, and just edits it or adjust it for their own liking. But for me, I would say developing that preventative maintenance program in such a way that people they don't have to have all that knowledge. They can go to the book and open the book, and that is sort of a handoff to the next FM, if nothing else. What other thoughts stand out about your accomplishments as a facilities manager?
Mine is very much the same, Chris. It's that when I came into this position, I was not a facilities person by any stretch of the imagination. We just happened to lose the facilities director, and I happened to be positioned with an opportunity to take it on. That said, there was no information. The previous person had it all in their head. So trying to find the information that I needed, trying to figure out where equipment was or to get the right people on things, it took a couple of years even to just feel like I had any kind of handle on our buildings, on our processes at all. So that really has been, and it continues to be, a work in progress for us here, with multiple campuses and multiple buildings on several of those campuses. if I get hit by a truck tomorrow, I don't want the next person who comes in to feel the same way that I did when they stepped in. I want them to have as much as I possibly can available for them, so they don't have to worry about that, so that they can see what inspection, they're not surprised when the next inspection is coming due, and they know where all of those inspection docs are when the fire marshal shows up, and where all of the air handlers are, and just so much of that information that I think it's, if we are really setting up the next set of people to come in for success, then that's really where my goal is, and what I am doing, and my biggest accomplishment here.
Very good. I think if you have the mindset that not that you're currently accomplishing something and you're completing something, but that you have that futuristic view, as Lara said, about have I pointed to in the right direction? Have I showed people the way as Jesus did before he left and gave his disciples the Great Commission? Has he modeled it for them and given them enough information to be successful in the book of Acts? So I think that's a greater success, I believe, as an FM, if you've done things that put things on the right path and help keep them in those guardrails or on that path in the future. I believe that would be a bigger accomplishment than just having completed the task and having kept the building from falling down, but have a building that will last without you even longer. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I think it's like almost any position in the church, and you guys are like spot on, but planned succession. So I know I'm not going to be doing this forever. So you want to make the path as smooth as possible for the next person coming in, and for the betterment of the church and the work of God. So anyway.
Amen. And Monty posted in the chat there that he went to certification program this last week, and I want those employees to know that this is not my feather in the cap. I'm willing to pass it off to someone else if someone's willing to put their arms around it and grab it. But as long as I keep getting paid, I'll keep trying to work. But I'm willing to share any knowledge I have. I have no secrets. I am not trying to protect my job from someone stealing it. You're welcome to learn everything I know and how I do it, and do better than me, hopefully.
My hope is just that they'll use everything that I left for them. It's there. It's findable. It's there. It's like Lara said, years of work of getting everything together and just combing the buildings to figure things out. And I don't want the next person to have to go through that, because it's been done.
Yes.
But I still have this fear that they'll walk in and say they can't find it or whatever. But I guess I have to say I've done what I know is best, and in my heart I left it so it will succeed. But then it stops for me at that point, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, my temptation would be that if I wrote a PM, that then I would get vinyl lettering and smear it all over the wall somewhere, so they have to read it to turn that valve, because they're not going to go get the PM. And I did all that work, but they're not pulling the binder out. Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, lock it all up, put a key in each PM, that they have to go get that key to, anyway. All right, we got to move along. So if there's no other thoughts on that. All right, let's go to the next one. Lloyd said, biggest challenge facing church facilities manager. What's your biggest challenge? So Lee asked, what's your biggest accomplishment? Then we asked, someone else asked about what's your biggest security issue. So what is your biggest challenge as an FM?
I think most of us would probably agree in time, money, and manpower, not necessarily in that order.
Yes.
I'm fortunate enough to be given funds to do a lot of the things I need to do, not ridiculous things that don't need to be done, but things that need to be done, I get most of my funding for. But having the time to get everything done and the manpower to get everything done is always a challenge.
So one of the things we've talked about in the past, especially with outside contractors, for instance, is that you can have something cheap and you can have it top quality, and you can have it really fast. So pick 3 or 2 of those, but you can't have all 3. So you pick 2 of those, and the last one, whatever you don't pick, it will be the worst you've ever had. So if you say, I want top quality and I want it cheap, then it's going to take forever to get done. If you say, I want it done really fast and top quality, the same thing, or maybe that's what I just said, but you see the point there. If you say, I want it really, really well done, and I don't care how long it takes, it might be really expensive. So it's those 3 things that you have to consider constantly. And even if Hal has enough money for something, he still has a lot of work to do. And I've noticed when I might have had funding for something, it's still really busy work for me to get it done. Like, I just don't have the time to get 3 quotes and talk to each contractor and mull over that, and then start to order parts, and then be here whenever the contractor wants to be here to get the job done. And it's a big, beautiful job, and it's expensive, but it's busy for me. I can only do so much. So then you have a labor issue. Yeah. Biggest challenge facing church facilities managers. Ken?
Yeah, I mean, right now, I think everybody's running into this, is just the cost, the inflation of everything. Labor's higher, parts is higher, everything's more expensive now. So that's just, we have to live with it.
Agreed.
Mine is just getting parts. It's really difficult to get things right now. So regardless of how expensive they are, it's just really difficult to find them. And now even a little bit harder in Florida. So there's other people that need it more than we do, just to live. So there's that. It's really hard to explain that to some people sometimes, is that we're already delayed, but we're even further delayed because we were so hard hit, and there are other people that need it more than we do.
Very good. Yeah, Joe?
Well, I mean, Hal hit it on the head, and I think we're fortunate to get funding we need, but I'm just short on staffing. I have 1 position, soon to be 2 positions, unfilled, and we've been advertising, and we looked around in-house at first within the church, and I think I have 1 application for the 2 positions that I have open. So we're really understaffed right now, and with the current job market out there, it's just the unemployment's really, really low. So we're just struggling to find somebody to fill those positions. And I've been through the subcontract, cleaning service route, and that it's just challenging. It's challenging right now. We're getting busier and busier as attendance rises and people are coming back, and it's just challenging to get everything done that needs to get done every day and every week, and keep it all rolling.
Labor. All right. Good challenge. All right, because we're running out of time, let's keep going, make sure we get all our questions taken care of. All right, this is from Kara. Kara, you want to take it, or you want me to say it?
I'll take it. Has anybody ever left a church FM position and gone to the same position at another church in the same town, possibly just a few blocks away? And how did you handle the inevitable comparisons between the 2 churches?
Hal has his hand up. Ken has his hand up.
So I literally just did this summer, and it's a little, I mean, it's not exactly the same position. The new position is a little bit higher, more of a director position, and we're 20 miles away, but it's we're same Catholic diocese, so we're the same group of people. It's just hard. I don't think it's comparisons that other people are making for me. I think it's me making comparisons to my last church. And, I'm always saying, well, we did this, we did this, we did this. And it's like, well, church I moved to has been in business for 50 years longer than the church I came from. So they have a lot of track record here, and they've done a lot of good stuff. So it's just a challenge. It's just a, personal growth on it.
Hal?
I think you gotta, I'm on my third church. My first two are within 4 miles of each other. And so you take the good things that you learned from the last church and you apply them at the first church, at your next one, and move forward. Hopefully you learn from your mistakes and you gain from your wins. And you're always going to compare things to your past. I compare things here to my other church, and it's 300 or 400 miles away. But you take the good with you, and you remember that you don't have to deal with those bad things anymore. It's a balance.
I think I get the picture of someone who's eating something with seeds and they spit the seeds out. They take the fruit, but they spit out the bad. You don't want to eat those big chunks of skin sometimes or something. I believe what you're also pointing to is that we're all human, and God has made each one of us. And in the same way that Jesus told us to love each other. And then I asked my class, and I challenged my class this week, but I can hate a sinner, right? And I got put in my place. We don't hate the sinner, we hate the sin. And so we're to love all people as Christ loved us first, and we're to forgive all people. And that's part of the Lord's Prayer as well, is that we would forgive. And so then what can I hate? And the Bible says you can hate divorce, you can hate evil, you can hate a lie. So if someone's telling you a lie, you can hate that lie, but you can't hate the person because they're just a sinner like you are, So you have to first admit I'm a sinner and then go, well, yeah, but that's a lie. And it makes me angry, but I love you and I want to work with you. And so so much of the tension a lot of times is created by other humans. And you are one of them. So you have to say, what am I growing in and how have I grown? And how am I first a sinner before I even look at the speck in someone else's eye? And then when I see that, then I can say, okay, now that you're a Christian brother or sister, now I can maybe go to you in private. And I say that because as you're looking at even a piece of equipment, that equipment was put there for some reason by some architect or designer, and it doesn't make much sense to you since you came from a place that had better equipment maybe. But in a similar way, you say, okay, what about this equipment can I embrace? What can I get my arms around here on this equipment? And what am I going to throw out? What am I spitting out here? Any other thoughts?
Just another quick comment was, so I still worship at the church that I used to work at. So I'm still close with them. And I actually went up, I was off yesterday for Columbus Day, and I went up and spent 3 hours with my replacement.
Awesome.
And just to help him, he had questions, and it's been 6 months, and he just needed a little bit of help.
Very good. That is wonderful, Ken. All right, well, we've been at this for an hour, so let's see what else we got left in our list of questions here. So that's our last question that was submitted. I know Jason's finally jumped on the call, and we've already gone over his question. So I purposely didn't record that session portion, Jason, just for you, brother. So I will have this recording available that will be posted with the rest of our YouTube videos. And just so that we don't spend too much time past an hour with each other, what is really weighing on your heart now that you want to throw out to our roundtable today before we get off this call? Any other thoughts or questions?
Hey, Chris.
Yes, go ahead, Ken.
I have another, I guess, safety question. If people could, I didn't submit it earlier, it just kind of came up, but we changed phone systems and I had a way of having a panic button on some of our key phones around the church that they just had to push that, and it would actually put a pre-recorded message over my two-way radio system. And then my guys would know where to report to if they need help. Now the new phone system is not seeming to do that, and I don't know, I may end up having to go back to square one. So I'm wondering, does anybody else have panic buttons at the desk? And I'm not just saying like the receptionist, I'm saying like 20, 30 phones, locations.
Good question and good idea. So Ken or Joe, go ahead.
Well, I mean, we have access control, but it's a DSX system, so it's a Windows-based system. But we have a panic button at both reception desks. We have one in the security room, and I have one in my office too. So at any time, if we push that button, it'll lock down the exterior doors. So I'm working on getting door ajar notification through to my cell phone. But I mean, we also have an active shooter pull tab in the security room too that you can pull and would dial direct to the local police department. So yeah, we have a couple things in place like that.
Good. All right. Anyone
Ken?
else? Yeah, go ahead.
So we have these little buttons. They're wireless. They connect to your Wi-Fi. They're from myspool.com. And they're about like $50 a piece, but when you hit the button, it'll send a text or an email out to whatever you can set up, and it'll tell you whatever message you put in there.
You said school or spool?
Spool, myspool.com. They have all kinds of different devices that are inexpensive, and they use Amazon messaging service. And so I've got some that plug into an outlet and tell me when the power goes out, when it comes back on. They've got leak detectors, all kinds of nifty little things. But the button locks down when you push it, and then you twist it and it'll pop back up. But yeah, you can go in and tell it to send it to however many email addresses, and you can have it send a text message. So then you just list in there who gets what.
Very good. So just to be clear, I got a thumbs up from Ken there. To Joe's comments, let's be clear for a second. If you have a door automation system or a programmable door or a card reader or a key fob system, and that system is robust enough or has enough sensors, then you can get what's called a doors ajar alarm, as Joe said, which is good because then a door's been propped open and you can be aware of that. And with any of those systems like that, then you get that additional information. And if the software tied to it is smart enough, you can then send that kind of information on to someone. You send alerts out. So I use Imran's product, IS2000, I think it was called. And that still requires door cards that have those inputs, and then you have to put those sensors out there, and then you have to go in that software and say, I want that to go on. What Ken's original question was more of the telephone on people's desk or in their offices. And there's a product, I think, in England called the Green Dot, or maybe even seen it as a Blue Dot. And everyone's desktop in a network environment, you can have your network engineers give everyone a desktop icon that they click on that icon, it does something. And that then goes out to a website that then either sends text messages, as you said, or starts dialing phone numbers if there's phone modems involved in that software. And so you need those companies like MySpool to have that cloud-based software ready to go, that when they get that input, they know what to do with that input. It's not much different than when your fire alarm goes off, that a monitoring station calls somebody. And so once a little bit of building architecture is in place, you can then start driving and pushing information out to people. The Green Dot is a little different than maybe like a Blue Dot, or what some buildings have is called a silent alarm. And the silent alarm is another term. If you look up silent alarm in your campuses, there's a lot of companies trying to sell you a style or type of silent alarm. And those even exist in hallways of churches. They'll have like a blue button that you might push. And the silent alarm, what that does is tell someone else somewhere in the building at the front desk, hey, I need help in this location. And so those are hardwired or wireless. So a couple different things have been thrown out with this question Ken put out there, and they are different systems, but can have similar response. Does that make sense?
And there's the school here that I'm at now, they're using the Raptor notification system from the Raptor, sign-in program, but they have a whole system where it sends text messages to whoever you have enrolled as text messages if you're doing a fire drill, lockdown drill, anything like that. So it stays on campus, but that's just another program you have to set up and buy if it's something you need.
Any other thoughts on Ken's question about his phone having a emergency button or emergency call button? Most of the new programmable IP phones, you can build that. So we have a Vonage system, and you could add a phone extension and pay for like a paging extension. You could design and build that with what you have. You just haven't researched it yet, or didn't pay that extra $3 a month for that, paging or that fax number. And so with the new equipment like IP phones, there's a lot you can do with those, and put an icon on everyone's phone now. It's an extra speed dial button or something. All right. Well, I've lost our VP for some reason on this call, and our president wasn't able to make the call. So I don't want us to belabor this. We did go over the questions that you guys submitted. I hope, and I'll put on the screen, that you guys would seek out our forum and our website, nacfm.com. Ask these same questions there in the forums, and you will get a different response, because you'll have those who didn't make our roundtable, maybe give you additional comments there. And I would encourage you to do that. I really enjoy what we're doing with these roundtable discussions and calls, and I hope it's been a help to you guys. Sherry, our marketing director currently, will try to get this published on our website or in our YouTube page, and go out there and see our pro tips we've been publishing there as well. Any final thoughts before we close our time together? All right, James, you want to close us in a quick word of prayer, and then we'll be dismissed. How's that?
Dear Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you for these men, and just their obedience to serve you in the capacities that we do at each one of our individual facilities. Just thank you for your son and what he's and dying on the cross for our sins, and just ask that you constantly, that we always think of you and why we do our ministries, and always keep you at the forefront. And it's in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right, we'll see all of you. I've had fun. Feel free to holler at me if you need
Thanks
anything.
for running it.
You bet, brother. We'll see you
Thank you.
guys. All right.
Adios.
Adios. Okay, Texas.